All right. What's good, people? Hope everybody's well. Man, it's been a long week. I'm sorry to come at you so late, but to those who are supporting the show nonetheless, I can't say anything but thank you. Appreciate that support. Hope everybody's well, as I said. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Hoping everybody is living life and living well, right, as we head into the season. Y'all know what it is. Shout out to Marcus, 29687. What's good? Danny, King, Longo, what's going on? KJ, Andre, what's up? We got Sam. Shout out once again to Ian, who is always holding me down, man. I hope you're well, good brother. I really do appreciate the ongoing support. Jeremiah, what's good? D. Scott, welcome to the Onyx Brotherhood. Welcome. Let's see. Okay. Andre said he subbed to the film review Patreon. Oh, beautiful. I'm thinking of doing one tomorrow, so I'm just trying to decide, but I think I will. Shout out to Toya. What's good with you, lady? Hope you're good. Proper Perspective. What's up? We got Big Cap. We got LXST. What's going on? As I said, hope everybody's well. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel if you will, so we can continue to bring you this independent black male thought. All right, I think I got that in place. We should be good. So yeah, looked like StreamYard was starting to act a little weird. Hopefully it's not. Shout out to Brandon. Says much respect. Appreciate that. Glad to catch you live. Glad you're here, man. Yeah, it's been a little weird day, but I'm done with the work week. I only got one class left next Tuesday, or one day of classes, and then then it's finals, and then we go from there. And your boy's on sabbatical for the spring, so I'm looking forward to being able to kind of reframe, reset, and start on the next book project. But since we're on a relevant subject, y'all know what it is. Donate, support the channel, do all of that good stuff. But also, if you haven't had a chance to, especially as the season is coming up, we're exchanging gifts and whatnot. Go ahead and check out the newest book, Solutions for Anti-Black Misandry. You can get that on Amazon. You can go to the Routledge website. There's a link in the description box if you're so interested to check that out. So I hope you're able to. Shout out to Dr. Smith. What's good, man? I ain't seen you in a minute. Hope you're well. Yeah, I might have to talk to you on how to use that sabbatical wisely. I don't know about the wisely part. That might be where I need some help. But I need to holler at you. So I hope you're well, man. And blessings to the family, bro. I hope you're good. Brandon, thank you. He says excited about the new book, man. I hope so. Share it, check it out, give me your thoughts. And I'll be bringing it up as relevant as we continue on, kind of looking at a few things. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the season. Son will be back in a few weeks, so it'll be good to see him again. But I got to check him out over the Thanksgiving break, and it was good to see him. So It is what it is. But yeah. So anyway, I mentioned something about this in my last show. Over the break, it was a one particular day I turned the TV on. I just let it play while I was doing some stuff, and I noticed it was on BET Her, you know. So the BET Her channel, if you're not familiar, is exactly what you think it is. It is, color purple all day, so to speak. Not the film itself, but in terms of the vibe. And I'm going to let you know what really kind of spawned a little bit of today's, show. So I was watching this, and one thing I will give BET credit for is they do a lot of independent Black films. So uh, there is a place for shoot, man. It's ridiculous. We'll get to that in a minute. Trying to open this thing up here. Anyway, so they do a lot of independent Black film, which is all good, right? And so I'm watching this movie. Eh, Loretta Devine on the right. I'm familiar with her. I'm not familiar with anybody else in the film, really. And it's basically about this young woman who kind of has a Scrooge kind of experience. Her life is really bad for her, and she has an angel come. It might have. Yeah. Anyway, angel comes in and makes her a diva, and she gets to experience life the way she always hoped she could, and finds out that life is valuable regardless, and money and fame don't always help. It's not. It is what it is. Independent Black film. It is what it is. But now this is Amber Riley who's starring in this, who I wasn't familiar with, but I can say she's a brilliant singer. Don't get it twisted. As much as I have problems with some of these kind of projects, I can say that she can blow. She can blow. Now, y'all know her back history probably better than I do. Yeah, there go KJ. He says it's a big girl from Glee. I've never watched Glee a day in my life. I didn't know who she was, but she can sing. I will give her that. Anytime she picked up the mic, she handled business. But, by the end of the series, when she kind of got everything she wanted, the dude you see in the picture was the man she wanted, right? So he's a bartender, a handsome brother, and he's just worshiping the ground she walks on. And, it was just, I mean, he was definitely, he was a beta all day. He was her beta, so she's got him, and, he's handling the kid they have, and, and then she's got the gay best friend, and she's got, it was everything we talk about, and pretty much whatever you can imagine. That's exactly what it was. And it started getting me thinking about some of these female superiority tropes that I'm seeing in these films, right? And just the sheer audacity and sometimes pure narcissism of it. And I don't like to use narcissism a lot because narcissism is not in great supplies. It's a fairly rare thing, but I do think there's a culture that is fairly narcissistic, especially in social media. And I do think it has really gone to the head of quite a few people. And I can definitely see it in these kind of films. Now, so this kind of spawned me wanting to really kind of look at media. And there's a few other things that popped up I'll share with you in a moment. Before we jump into that, though, you'll remember, if you're a longtime listener, that a while ago, a couple years ago, we created the Onyx Media Test. And it is inspired by the Bechdel test, right? And it really has to do with the representation of Black men in particular. And that's what all of these points really pertain to, is Black men. So as you can see in the top line, it says, inspired by the Bechdel test, the Onyx Media Test questions whether a media production has at least 2 Black males in it, which, depending on the project, is rare to find. And that includes some of these, independent Black film projects, which tend to be very gynofocal. Right? They focus on the women, and they view women as their primary base, which in many respects is true. Shout out to BGS. Appreciate that support, man. Thanks for coming through. So yeah, right. And there's 2 components to this that I think relate to what we're talking about. Let me see. Andre asks, have you seen the movie Concrete Cowboys? I think I did. A Black father in Atlanta, or something, that raises horses and has a son. I think I did. That sounds really familiar to me. I do believe I've seen it, but I'll double check. But anyway, so the 2 aspects, or two points on this list that relate to some of the projects we're going to be looking at today are number 2 and number 8, right? Don't spend, so it has to do with at least 2 black males in the film who don't spend most of the story overly catering to either white or female characters, especially without reason. And number 8, are not beaten up or often outsmarted by whites or women and aren't used as foil. Now, this is the key part. They're not used as foil merely to highlight white or women's inherent superiority as far as physical, moral, intellectual, whatever that superiority is. And we see this a lot with films. Matter of fact, Manosphere Highlights Daily did a brilliant video today dealing with abuse in films and media, where women are allowed to hit men and it's somehow acceptable. It did a great job on it, and it's right in line with what I'm talking about. That's why I didn't really add it to today, because if you just go watch that video, you can add it right into what I'm talking about and it fits. So he did a brilliant job. Check that out, Manosphere Highlights Daily, if you haven't checked it out in a while. And if you go into his Patreon, you can actually see the video in its full form without all the editing for YouTube. So I highly support that option. So check that out if you get a chance. But these 2 points I want to bring up as it relates to some of the projects that we're going to look at today, because we have 2 major types of media that I want to explore. I want you guys to give your thoughts on, right? So just to kind of list out some random things I've run across in just the last few days. I mean, this one I actually ran across about an hour or 2 ago, right? The Mad Max saga. So they're doing a spinoff on Furiosa. Now, I have not watched Mad Max since Mel Gibson did it. It looked to me like the latest Mad Max series was really in line with a lot of the films I'm going to talk about today, and there are many more, right? But nonetheless, this is the next one. So this is what's coming out, and there's a whole trailer on YouTube picking up on her character. I don't know the character. All I noticed was when I watched the trailer, I didn't see Max in it. And, she was the central focus. And so we're seeing a lot of that, right? We're seeing a lot of films that are primarily male-led projects, but they're spinning off on women. So they do a couple of different things. They either have women that come in the story, dominate intellectually or physically with a male character, and try to take over, right? Try to take the energy and spin it off in another direction. It seldom, if ever, works. But they keep trying and they keep doing it. And we're going to get to some of the reason why. Counts Sekou says, what is this? The "you got this" supporting character. Right? Yeah. KJ said, I just saw this. Right. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing we're talking about. So there are many of these projects. And because I can't go into depth on the Mad Max series because I haven't watched it, I'll only say, just looking at the trailer, I saw enough of the markings to be familiar with what's going on. So again, female character taking over, and this is happening. Comic books, films, y'all know the deal, right? Commercials even. I did a show on Lovecraft Country with BGS a couple years ago. Check that out. You can go and it goes into more detail and stuff I'm talking about, but you see those tropes there. I just pulled up a few random things. I did a show on The Power. If you're not familiar with this is a series where literally women wake up one day and they literally have the power to electrically shock people through their hands, through their body. They have this power. And you see the impact of that globally, because it just, women just kind of wake up with it. And you see them kind of taking over. And it's really interesting to watch in one vein, but it very much speaks to, purposefully and not, to this kind of superiority trope thing that I've been talking about. Now, this is a little more brazen. This is a little more, out there, but there are a lot of levels to this that we'll look at. So if you haven't checked out The Power, you can check that out on Amazon, or you can check out my review, or both, and you'll see kind of how I went through that. Now this one, these are a little random, but they're random for a reason, because I want you to just kind of see how much breadth these kind of concepts have. Now this comes out of Marvel Comics, and this is a new character. Well, this is actually a couple years old. So let me see, this article I'm looking at, a few years old. This is 2016. And the character is called Moon Girl, and she's supposed to be the smartest, smartest person. I think that is, smartest person in the Marvel universe. So when they really started showing her they kept saying that the tagline was like, she's smarter than Reed Richards and Tony Stark. And you saw the same thing, of course, with Black Panther's younger sister in the Marvel series, where you kind of got to see her as really the most intelligent person, kind of outdoing, Banner and Stark and all of them. It is what it is. There we go. So Jalen writes, appreciate the support. He says, what's up, Doc? Have you noticed in commercials, they always show women being smart and taking advantage of the product while the men struggle by not using said product? Well, the men struggle for not using said product. Yeah, definitely. And there's an intellectual superiority trope that plays into that too, which is, very, brazen with this character here. So Moon Girl, who rides around on a dinosaur. I think she had a cartoon for a little while, as the smartest person, and I'm seeing this, and I find it interesting because comic books are a genre that has been targeted to boys over the generations, and Black boys and men fought their way into comics in many respects, and now virtually unrepresented, to the degree we need to see them, right? And I say this as a father who raised a son who was looking for projects that my son could read and enjoy that, reflect him, but not very many, right? But we saw these kind of tropes here. And in and of itself, I don't have a problem with it. It's more a question of how it relates to a widespread set of practices that seem to be becoming normalized in the last 20 years, especially, right? And we get to the latest Blade project. And many of you are already familiar with what took place about a month ago, where they released some information about the upcoming Blade project with Mahershala Ali pictured here. I like Mahershala as an actor. I think he's good. I think he could probably do a good Blade. But apparently when he signed on, he wasn't happy with the script. He backed out of it, which I tip my hat to him for doing. And, at one point they said that in regard to the story, at one point, it was 3 women giving life lessons, that they were going to be the central focus of the film. Blade was going to be the 4th character in his own movie, right? His own reboot, as it were. And then there were other iterations where one of the female characters was going to be a daughter, right? She already has vampire powers. At one point, I heard a story where she was bitten by a werewolf and becomes this ultra powerful being with the power of the wolf and the vampire. And then she just really outdoes her father when it comes to, I guess, killing vampires, right? So that was one of the tropes that I heard early on coming out of the studios. I don't know what direction they're finally going to go in, but it's, these kind of things are common. So, whether or not he'll stick with the project, whether or not they'll do something that fits the character, we'll see. But nevertheless, this is one of the latest projects where we got to see this kind of stuff play off. Now, one of the more recent pieces of news is about the Silver Surfer, right? So we know apparently that the Silver Surfer, the next film that they're going to do on this character, is supposed to be, as according to ScreenGeek.net, where Silver Surfer is reportedly going to be a woman. Now, we've seen over the years, a diminishing interest in these kinds of films, which has often been, dismissed as superhero fatigue. At one point they said it was the pandemic. At another point, they were saying that, of course, you just had men that hated women. And we found the stats, even on the latest film, The Marvels, that the majority of those who went to the theater to see the film were men, right? But they still don't want to cater to those who actually have actually built up these projects over generations, which are mainly men. So we keep coming back to the same kind of dynamic over and over and over again. And this is a particular one that got my attention. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Monarch. If you've been watching, I guess they call it the Monsterverse. I think that's what they call it. King Kong, Godzilla, all of that have their own universe. And the films have actually been kind of interesting. I've enjoyed them. This iteration of Godzilla I like. It's interesting to watch. I think they have another one coming out soon. But of course, as a lot of projects do, they released a series called Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. And so I watched the first 3 or so episodes of this about a week or two ago, and I thought it was interesting. And I actually posted something on on Facebook about it. And let me see. So I'll actually read to you what I said just so I can make sure I don't forget anything. It says, I said, I'm watching this series right now. I'm on the second episode. As I said in my last post, there are micro female superiority tropes all throughout. Now, I say that because there are some projects like Moon Girl that are superiority tropes without question, straight up. And we see this a lot where we have female characters that come in, beat up a bunch of guys, outsmart a bunch of guys, even if she doesn't have anything to do with the story. I mean, sometimes, back in the day, if you go back to the old Ben Affleck Daredevil film, you'll have a character that just, comes in and outdoes him in his own film. And so what? I mean, that's it. We saw this a lot. Those I would consider straight up superiority tropes, right? Female superiority tropes. But I want to introduce this idea of micro superiority tropes, micro female superiority tropes. And this is what I mean. So I continue. The women aren't three-dimensional characters. In fact, they're actually insufferably annoying. At every turn, they're almost all the same character. They're purposely written as better, smarter, and unnecessarily snarky and sarcastic, but only to men. They're mostly superior in attitude. They're super brilliant. They're always right. They're hostile to male support, yet ungrateful when it's useful. And they even double up and make fun of men right in front of them together, right? And also, many of them, they don't train. They don't have to learn anything. They just arrive at their brilliance or their superpoweredness or whatever it is. They're constantly shown as one-upping men, and the men are always in awe of how brilliant they are. What's two things? They're either in awe of how brilliant these women are, and they hyper compliment them throughout the film. You're so brilliant, you're so beautiful, or they're the opposite, right? They're the sexist guy that just can't handle a woman as smarter and better than him. Those are the two dominant tropes we see in terms of men responding to this incredible brilliance from women in media, right? Um, Anyway, so it continues. As this has become a sponsored trope in media, it has become clear how much of an agenda this is. It's designed to give generations of men, especially boys, an inferiority complex in education, employment, and even dating and mating. The problem, I don't think we've thought through what this does to generations of young males in society, especially since the 1980s, and its inadvertent impact on girls and women. It's already not pretty, but only if you're paying attention. So in this particular film, most of the female characters you can see on the screen, smarter, better, more capable than their male characters. Male characters are not as bright. They're barely keeping up. Women are making fun of them or, coming up with answers in the man's field of study that she's not really in, but she's coming up with answers in his field and he's in awe of what she knows, constantly doing it over and over again in each episode so far. I think I've seen one more since this came out, so I haven't kept it up. But Kurt Russell is in it, and the guy on the left who actually plays in Marvel, he tries to take over as Captain America in the Falcon and the Cap series. That's actually Kurt Russell's son, which I was glad. I like Kurt Russell, especially that movie Soldier he did years ago. I grew up watching Kurt, so I kind of like him. But he's in this. He's the only character that doesn't really let the female characters get away with that shit. He actually checks them in his own kind of way, but for the most part it's rampant, and they even have sister in it. She's pictured right there on the right next to the Asian gentleman. She's living in, I think, Japan, and super computer geek that knows everything. It's just it writes itself. Shout out to Art Nustel. What's going on, man? Shout out to Donnie. What's good? Onceler says, and the sad part is some of the non-black nerds blame this shit on us. We ain't making these bullshit movies and comics. Real talk, we're not. But it's constantly being shoved in our faces. Overall. So, what's up, Dardar? Good to see you, man. Shout out to David. David says from the official sponsor, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson, Black Men. Appreciate that, man. Yeah. So this was one of the films that really got me, kind of looking at this. Shout out to Craig. Says, wait till you see the TV series called Motherland Fort Salem and Wheel of Time. Damn, I haven't heard of either one of those. Okay. Yeah. And I want you guys to put in the comment section the kind of projects and films you're seeing this in. I want us to have some kind of record of just how widespread this shit is. Because I'm watching this, and of course, you know, this. So what they're doing in this series is they're going back to different time periods. They do a lot of time jumps because Monarch is this organization that's been studying these monsters from the beginning. And so they kind of show you how the organization formed, you know, and you kind of getting it, you know, they're bouncing through time trying to, you know, predict what's coming next and whatnot. So there's a lot of science elements to it, which are interesting. But, you know, these gender kind of issues keep popping into it, and it almost interrupts the flow of the film just for them to constantly tell you women are better. You know, it's almost, you know, I'm one of these people that hate commercials, so I'll just be enjoying the movie, and every time a commercial comes on, I'm pissed, and I have to remember to just go watch it on something where I don't have to see commercials. That kind of interruption to the flow of the story, that's what these kind of moments kind of do. We have these characters constantly, you know, it's not like the audience, like we have to take a station break to remember, to remind you to remember that the females are smarter, they're better, they're more capable. You are insufficient, you are inferior. There are these constant things, but understand they're micro statements. They're micro statements. They're not widespread. Let me see. Want to make sure I don't forget where I put a few of these things, because I put them somewhere and then I almost forgot them all entirely. All right. So let me see if I can. Yeah. All right. Okay. It's not going to let me do it that way. All right. So I'll pull it up in a second. I think I know where to do with it. So I'll give you examples. So as I started thinking about these micro kind of female superiority tropes, I started to see them more often. So I'm going to throw a few random things at you. So here, this is somebody I think mentioned something about this earlier, but this is just a Halloween commercial. I just want you to pay attention to it. Matter of fact, I'm thinking of turning off the sound. Maybe that'll help me with the copyright issues that I tend to get hit with. But let's check this out. Let me try to see if I can cut the sound though. So we're just going to cut it, and we'll see if this makes any difference whatsoever. Right. But if you see this, you got the two boys taking, you know, Halloween candy. The girl splits them, walks between them. The female handing out candy gives her two pieces, and both the women walk away, and the boys are standing there stunned. Now, on the surface, looks like nothing. But again, if you and your children are getting hit with this 1,000 times a day, you know, what ends up happening with these micro female superiority tropes, right? So again, just to kind of walk through it, you know, Halloween, two boys having fun. She comes out smiling. She looks weird that they took a piece of candy each. She looks like she's offended. And when the little girl comes up dressed in both, she hands the girl two pieces, and they both walk away with a smug kind of superiority to them. And it's like, why was that even necessary? It's a commercial for Halloween. Why is it necessary at that juncture to have these little moments of superiority? I got a few of them. So let's see. I don't even remember what I pulled together, but there's a few of them. Let me see. All right. Okay, so here's another. These, again, micro.
You can have a taste of chocolate.
You know, guy sitting there about to enjoy some candy. Woman walks up, takes it out of his hand, eats it, walks it away. He stands there looking stupid. Now, what is the micro statement in that? Right? What is the underlying statement? You tell me. But if you keep getting hit with these little micro moments, what exactly are we supposed to take away from these things? This one I am going to try and leave the sound on. And now this one, there's a couple of shorts I'm going to play. Again, we'll see what happens with YouTube. But let's see. So this is a short coming from Comics Explained. Check this out.
Comics has some ridiculously overpowered characters. You've got Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, Franklin Richards.
Okay, just real quick, put a 1 in the chat if you could hear him. I'm trying to make sure the sound is working. And let me know if you could hear that video at all. Put a 0 if you couldn't, if it had no sound. Shout out to Clockwork. He said these tropes have been pushed pretty hard in Stranger Things as well, especially after it got, okay, good, you guys can hear it. especially after it got popular. It was about boys and their nerd hobbies. Now it's basically the two lead girls solving everything. Absolutely. Absolutely. So here, we'll let Comics Explain continue.
Matthew Malloy, any one of whom can alter the fundamental structure of the universe, turning anything into anything else. Then you've got the Molecule Man Owen Reese, you've got the Beyonder, who can basically alter the structure of the multiverse. Above them, you have the Living Tribunal, and even the one above all, who was believed to be the most powerful being in Marvel Comics. But all of those guys pale in comparison to the power of a girl named Miranda, who only appeared in one story arc, and her level of power was so extreme, not even the one above all could undo anything she wanted to do. She could create anything out of anything and give it an entire history. She could wipe something out of existence and its entire history would be destroyed as well. She was, by all standards of measurement, a stand-in for the writers and the editors and the artists at Marvel Comics. Make sure you guys check the comment for a link to the video.
And you would think that such a moment might even be given to, you know, boys who, again, have been supporting the genre for generations. But no, they don't get anything. Now, this is a clip. You know, I don't know how many of you read the comic Invincible or watch the animated show on Amazon. I think Invincible is great. I wish I was reading it when it came out. I think I was kind of starting to be disillusioned with comics even then, but I did miss a good series. The animated series is pretty good. It's not as good as the comics. And this particular video, and fair use, I should have said that earlier, fair use. This particular video highlights one of the differences between the comic book and the animated series. The animated series just started its second season a few weeks ago, and it's finished half of that. So I think in 2024, it's going to play the latter half. So there's 4 or 5 episodes there from season 2. Season 1 was a few years ago. So they've come back with season 2, and again, it's on Amazon. I highly recommend it. Excellent series so far. But there are little micro things that take place. So this is an episode, right? And in the course of this episode, one of the central figures comes back to his base, and you know, has a discussion with one of the generals. So, you know, again, fair use for this. Check out this moment of yet another micro female superiority trope.
Invincible Season 2, Episode 3, and the comic books. Alan's girlfriend Talia was never a member of the Coalition, much least his superior.
You're late.
General Talia, my apologies. I got here as soon as I could.
The Viltrumite.
Talia only had one purpose in the entirety of the Invincible comics. I don't have to say it because you're seeing it for yourself. Clothes was not in this woman's vocabulary. She only served one single purpose the entire comic. And I completely understand wanting to add more to the character, but now she's Alan's superior. Alan had no superiors but the council.
We could never trust one of them.
Mark isn't like other Viltrumites.
But now Talia is a strong, independent woman that ranks above Alan, whom he has to answer to. I'm not saying she couldn't have had some other character development than being Alan's booty call. In my honest opinion, there was no need to change Talia's character. She was perfect the way she was in the beginning. There was absolutely no reason to change Talia.
There you go. Right. And this is what I mean when I say micro female superiority tropes. It didn't really change the story significantly. And even if you didn't want her to be his sexual / love interest and you wanted to give her a more central part, fine. But I find it interesting that the more central part she has to have is as his general. Right. So again, this is what I mean. These kind of micro moments, from commercials to television shows to films, and they come up in these little silent little moments, and it's just enough to go and almost forget about it. But I do think at the same time there's a conditioning that takes place, a subconscious conditioning that's going on in popular media. And you have some projects that are brazen, some of them that are straight out, you know, female superiority tropes. But again, at this particular juncture, I'm pointing out the micro moments. And I think they're important to point out because, you know, nobody discusses them. Sometimes they're so small that you kind of go, am I being petty for this? I mean, it's just a candy commercial, right? Maybe I'm tripping. But then you see another one. And then you see another one. And then the show you're watching comes back on and you see it again. And you see it again. And the interesting part is if you removed all of that from whatever you're watching, it really wouldn't change the story to any great degree. Right? It's almost the opposite of what used to happen in some of the shows I used to watch. Like in one of my classes, we used to talk about the film Independence Day. And Vivica Fox plays, a character, Will Smith's love interest, and she's a mother, but she's also a stripper. It was like, that wasn't even important. She could have been a secretary and it wouldn't have changed the story. So, there's this legacy in film where Black women used to be presented in, these kind of hypersexualized ways and so on and so forth. But now the situation is almost kind of flipped. And in major and micro moments, you constantly see these narratives of female superiority. And when you start to look at that alongside policy, and this is what my book talks about, then you can kind of see how a lot of this is actually pushing males to completely walk away. Shout out to Ty313, says Pavlovian conditioning with messaging and images, also control of environmental plus resources. Dr. Amos Wilson said, we are the rat dog, not experimenter. There you go. There you go. All right. Again, like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel. Fair use. I always get in trouble for these kind of things. So, and there's a reason behind this. And I think it's important that we kind of look at what some of these reasons are, and hopefully this stuff works. But let's check it out. So this is a clip that I pulled from Midnight's Edge, and they did a very interesting video. And one of the things, they do a couple of them that I really like. The channel itself I'm pretty good with. And they're the only ones that I really started to hear talking about this whole notion of ESG. Shout out to Andre. Andre says, cough, Luke Cage and Black Lightning TV shows. Yeah, not as much the Luke Cage show. I don't remember as much of it, but I know in that whole series with Daredevil and, the Iron Fist and all of that, you had characters that make no sense. I mean, one was a nurse, and I think she had trained in karate for like a week, and she was taking down like the SWAT team cops that were infiltrating the building she was in. And I was just like, stop it. Y'all need to just stop with this mess. It's getting ridiculous. Bed Mike says, Dr. T, scientific study after study show women and men have the same intellectual ability, but now people like Richard Reeves push that boys should pursue vocations and women pursue the sciences. Yeah. I have some disagreements with Reeves that I've spoken about before, particularly in, his notion that boys should start school later. I think that's the last thing Black boys need. I just think they need more hands-on education. I think that applies to boys across the board, more tactile, more involved, not as much sitting and talking, sitting and being quiet. And I think that's been misconstrued as a learning disability of sorts, whether it's officially labeled as such or not. So I do have some disagreements with Reeves. We agree that boys need more than what they're getting. I think we just disagree on how. Shout out to Clockwork says, another trend is women giving birth being put in a harshly negative light. What are your ideas about the end goals of all of this? Yeah. And they're tamping down roles that highlight femininity. And of course, that's one of the big tropes we see in a lot of these characters. One of the other tropes that I can identify with this female superiority thing is that they outmale the males. They outman the men. They're either tomboys who are highly competitive or a little feminine, but switch very quickly to dominating the men at whatever the men are known for. And I think it's more and more of that. A lot of the characters you see have less and less femininity altogether. And they really just, from project after project, they're almost trying to prove to you that women are better men than men. Right. And then of course, if you question that, if you raise that, people say, well, you're essentializing women and, women can do anything and men can be anything. And it's like, yeah, but if you ever raised boys, you'll notice some of the stuff is much deeper than, just some surface level, conditioning from media. Some of this is very much tied to the nature of boys. Hold on. Got Great I9. What's good with you, man? Says these micro tropes are inserted very purposefully. This is very expensive in terms of millions of dollars in ads / shows. Big money comes behind these small moments. Absolutely. But we're going to get an explanation why from Midnight's Edge. And he kind of gives us a framework to better understand. And this is something I was talking to Artisan about on his show a few years ago with Angry Man. And one of the things we were talking about are why they keep, I was asking why they keep making these movies that are not yielding a profit. This is probably 3 years ago. They're not yielding a profit and they make them over and over and over again. And I could not understand for me the logic behind it. I mean, I guess I could see it if they were pulling in Barbie kind of money, but a lot of these projects fail. Well, this was the first channel that gave me some information that really kind of helped make sense of it. I hope this can be heard. So let's see. Let me see. Okay, just let me know again with a 1 if you were able to hear just those few words. I don't usually play audio like this, so I want to make sure it works. So forgive me. Put a 1 if you guys heard the first few words of that sound I was playing, that audio. All right, Joe says 1. All right, cool. So let it continue. This is only going to be about a minute and a half. Fair use, but let's hear what they have to say. Midnight's Edge about this.
In our first video covering what happened with Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch, we introduced the concept of ESG. For huge corporations in particular, their access to the credit they need to not just stay in business, but to further expand their operations and grow as a company is now linked to their ESG score. If they don't comply with the social and environmental requirements needed to maintain a sufficiently high score.
Okay, so I'm seeing some zeros. So I'm hearing is the volume 2. Can you guys hear it at all? I'm seeing some 1s and some zeros. So it's really, some are saying it's very low. Okay, hold on. Let me see if, I don't know if that would actually help though. So some are saying it's low. Let me see. See if I can.
On a number of metrics, representation.
Was that any louder? What you just heard then? Was that, it's still muffled, huh? All right. Let's see. Let's see if I can at least maybe get away with a minute and a half directly from the video. So let's see if this works. Where did it go? Okay. I know I'm gonna have to do it. My apologies. I wanted to get this to be a little smoother, but we'll get there. I have failed enough to learn a few things. So I take it straight to the timestamp and we will make it happen. So I think this is, all right, hold on. There it is, 13. Okay, so about 13:55. Let's start it there. So we're going to get about a minute and a half of this. Here we go.
That path leading to ruin.
Now, could you guys hear that better? Was that any louder? Was it clearer? Okay. Can't tell you. Perfect. All right. So let's get it in. Here we go. Fair use.
In our first video covering what happened with Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch, we introduced the concept of ESG. For huge corporations in particular, their access to the credit they need to not just stay in business, but to further expand their operations and grow as a company is now linked to their ESG score. If they don't comply with the social and environmental requirements needed to maintain a sufficiently high score on a number of metrics, representation being an example of one, their credit line is literally on the line, which means insolvency is on the table if they don't go sufficiently woke. We used Anheuser-Busch to illustrate the point in that video, as they provided the perfect case study, but it applies equally to Disney as well. Case in point, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm and even Fox were all acquired in deals that mixed stock and cash. And that cash was loaned from creditors that would come to push ESG, and the moment they did, Disney were forced in on that racket too, meaning they must now uphold and preserve their ESG score in order to remain solvent. For an entertainment company, this means that not only will they have to force diversity and representation into their hiring practices, they also have to infuse what the critical drinker has famously dubbed the message into their programming.
Okay. Yeah. So sorry about the sound effects, but hopefully that went through smooth, right? So yeah, Midnight Edge, kind of breaking it down. And it really began to really explain why we've seen so many of these projects fail, and yet they, they not only get more of them, but the writers, the directors, they continue to fail upward to the degree where they get more projects to do. So no matter how many times they fail, we get the same people producing the same material over and over again. And as it relates to Black maleness, one of the things that that we could kind of see in the Marvel projects in particular was you had this kind of sidekick trope thing that mirrored the history of Black men in comics, at least until you got to Panther. There was hope with Blade, but we still don't know which direction they were going to go with that. And I say hope because if you take it back to the Wesley Snipes era, you had the presentation of manhood, Black manhood in Blade in the 1990s was cold. I mean, it was. I was so proud of Snipes. I was so proud of Snipes when he came out with Blade. And shout out to Michael J. White when he played Spawn. I enjoyed both of those series. You wouldn't get to see that today. Black Panther is the closest you get. And the only way we got Panther was to be surrounded by female characters that basically took his qualities. So not only was Wakanda, far more representative in terms of women, but they literally took his superpowers, most particularly his younger sister. Right. And so that kind of was the only way you can get a Panther. You can't have him be too smart. You can't have him be too masculine. You can't have him be too powerful without conceding that power to women. And actually, they ended up taking his most important superpower, which was his brilliance. I mean, T'Challa was supposed to be one of the top 10 most brilliant people on the planet. And they extend that over to his sister, which I've said repeatedly is like giving Lois Lane Superman's strength or his ability to fly, right? Why would you want to watch that? Right. But that's kind of the kind of thing that's been happening. So when it pertains to Black men, especially in the MCU, early on, we were allowed to be sidekicks. And then, you got to Panther, but again, you had to negotiate Panther with his females. And by the time you get to Black Panther 2, he's eliminated from his own story. Right. Eliminated from his own story. So that being said, these are the kind of projects we're seeing. And ESG, I think, kind of gives us some explanation around what's been happening. Right. And there's a term for it that I kind of found that helps put a little of this in context. Right. Because ESG is funding it. But when we look at the terms or what it is they're funding, we should be clear, right? So this is a term that, hold on, try and enlarge it there. Hembrism, right? Hembrism. That's what we're looking at, right? Let me see. All right. So surrounding gender equality, the term Hembrism has gained significant attention, represents an issue that affects many societies globally, yet it remains relatively less explored compared to its counterpart, feminism. Hembrism, in essence, embodies the systemic and societal favoritism towards females to the detriment of males, leading to a power imbalance and perpetuating stereotypes. Understanding the intricacies of this phenomenon is crucial in fostering comprehensive gender equality and inclusivity. To grasp its implications fully, it is essential to delve deeper into the roots and manifestations of Hembrism within various societal structures. So I'll just read this next paragraph and that's it. Understanding Hembrism, how Hembrism differs from feminism. Hembrism is often misconstrued as the antithesis of feminism. While feminism advocates for equal rights and opportunities for all genders, Hembrism focuses on the preferential treatment of females, often at the cost of disregarding the rights and needs of males. This critical distinction highlights the complexities within gender-based discrimination and emphasizes the need for a nuanced approach to address both issues. Right? Let's check out another brief description of it. Right? So fundamentally, what this deals with is female superiority. It's another way of terming it. And you can see at the bottom, this is a Modi page on Hembrism, right? And basically puts it out pretty straightforward. Hembrism is not the same as misandry. Hembrism refers to a supposed concept of superiority of women, while misandry is the hate or dislike towards men, right? So in its essence, we're talking about female superiority. And this is what we are looking at as it relates to these projects. So ESG tells us how they're funded, and it helps us understand the way that these projects and these companies are operating and why. But how they're going about it, they just decided to use this kind of hembristic framework to do it. And even doing so on a micro level, right, is a way of conditioning the public to accept women and girls in better positions. And the thing about it is, I don't have a problem with women and girls in better positions. I have a problem, as Hembrism is defined, with women and girls being positioned that way, particularly in popular culture, to the detriment of men and boys. And when you take that argument into the Black community, you're already talking about boys and men in duress. Even when we're doing well, it's still an uphill battle. We don't get it easy. We get it out of the mud. We don't get a lot of help. There are no policies. There are no funds. We're not getting corporations coming in to give Black men billions. Nobody's really targeting Black boys, despite that they're last in terms of the educational markers. We can talk about it from health to incarceration. Black boys and men are grappling with society. And like I said, even when we're doing well, it's not because we've had support. It's in spite of a lack of it, which speaks to the strength of Black males. But at the same time, it doesn't address the fact that there's no support in any significant manner, right? So when you apply this kind of, hembristic framework where it comes in and demands that we all stand in awe of women's brilliance, it's like, okay, well, you're talking about women that get, this monumental amount of support that boys and men are not able to get, especially in the Black community, and you're going to double down on that? See, this is problematic. And again, I'm not just talking about white productions. We started this by looking at a movie or talking about a movie played on BET Her. And there's a lot of those films. If you ever go to that channel, there's a lot of, there's a bevy of independent Black films, but they are all gynofocal. They all are gynofocal, even if the lead character is male. But again, on BET Her, that's not what you're going to get. Of course, it's going to be a female character. But what goes on is worse than that. It's not just that she's a female character and there are other people just operating in the course of the story. The males have to be beneath her. They have to be less capable, less confident, less intelligent, less physically, powerful and adept. They have to be lesser than at each stage of this. And that's partly the problem, right? Because when you add this up over years, over decades, and you see it happening on so many different levels, I think it begins to do damage. And the most vulnerable population to this are boys, young boys. They're the most vulnerable. Because as this stuff happens, what they're being taught, in terms of what's expected of them, what they're capable of, what they should aspire to, where they can go, what they can do, when all of that gets diminished, you basically flush generations of young men out of the picture before they even become men. And that's what I've been seeing happen. I've seen it directly with my son and his friends, but I'm also seeing it indirectly on a macro level in society. There are very few media projects that actually bolster and build confidence in young boys and men who would like to see that, like to see those characteristics. And again, when you go back to comic books, when you consider how many generations Black men fought to be shown in a humanistic light, hell, even in terms of superheroes' physical prowess, right? Black men fought in boxing rings, on football fields to demonstrate their capability on a physical level. And I'm only talking about physicality as it relates to the superhero genre. It is believable for Black men to be able to operate at a powerful level because we've seen Black men prove it. They paid in blood. They paid in blood on battlefields, in boxing rings, on fields of sport fields. Black men paid in blood to prove our standing. And by the time you start to see these projects on an international stage, Black men are virtually removed from it, unless they're willing to play sidekicks or lesser characters. Excuse me. So this is what we're dealing with. And I got to shout out Donnie. Oh, man. Superman versus Ali. I did a video on it. If you've never seen that comic, find it. It blew my mind as a child. You know, extra size print. To my understanding, the Nation of Islam negotiated with with DC to make sure that Muhammad Ali was represented properly. And he actually knocks out Superman. So as a little kid looking at that, blew my mind. And I found a copy a few years ago, still have it, highly recommend it. But you know, at the end of the day, those are the things we got to look out for. Shout out to Compassionate and Callous. What's good with you, man? Hope you're well. Let me see a couple comments in here. Vanguard is the largest shareholder of Disney. All right. They can burn billions and not make a dent in that 8 trillion. This isn't about money. Okay. Although I'm noticing that I think they're trying to pull back. I got some reports on the latest Marvel's movie. They didn't double down quite as much in the traditional tropes. But at the same time, I don't think they're going to stop doing what they're doing. Let's see. Nameless Protagonist, what's good with you, man? Hope you're well. Thanks for supporting the show. Over 400 watching. Please hit the like button, like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel, please, so we can continue to do this. Here we go. We got Jay Will. Jay Will says, I will never forgive them for what they did in Star Wars with the sequel trilogy. Finn was done wrong, and they pulled a bait and switch with the promo. No, they absolutely did. They absolutely did. You know, but truth be told, I remember the first trailer I saw. Finn looked like he was escaping a plantation. He was scared to death, and I was already looking at it sideways, like I ain't never seen a black man that scared before in a film. But you know, that was I had a bit of a problem with that. Let me see. Shout out to Andre for the donation. He says, I have a daughter and refused to take her to see Barbie. I told her mom, that's on you. Well, I understand. Shout out to Chaos Rain. What's good with you, man? Right? No, that's real. And I respect, you know, you got daughters, you got to handle that. You got to, you know, bring them into adulthood with confidence and love. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have films where you have capable women. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying, just as we saw with the definition of Hembrism, that there's a difference between showing capable women in situations, handling things, stories revolving around them, that all of that is okay, but it doesn't have to be done at the detriment of men. In order to prove her brilliance or her capability, they always go to the same tropes. They're kicking the balls, or they're kicking them through walls, or they're just outsmarting them left and right. And there's a million other examples I could have shown. I just grabbed a spattering of them just so you can kind of see just how dangerous these micro tropes are and how often they keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And it just amazes me because I do hear people talking about it, but you know, usually when it's extreme, like dealing with the last sequel trilogy for Star Wars, that's extreme. You got Rey, comes out of nowhere, never studies the Force, knows everything about it, beats up Luke Skywalker. And then they do a retro and take you back and show you when Leia learned how to use the Force from Luke and then beats him up in a training. Right? These constant, you know, digs at men as if we don't see it. Right? It's constantly problematic. It doesn't have to be done. You know, my son and I, we just watched a bunch of movies when he came for Thanksgiving, and you know, I introduced him to the Alien series. Right? I think I showed him the first Alien years ago, and I think I scared the crap out of him. He was mad at me for years because I have a thing for horror movies. But he came back and he said, you know, I never saw the sequel to Aliens. I want to see it. So we sat and we watched Aliens. And then we watched Alien 3, which a lot of people don't like, but I love Charles Dutton. So as long as Charles Dutton is in it, I'm going to support it. So we watched Aliens and Alien 3. And we're watching Ripley. You know, Ripley is handling business. At no point does she have to be this kind of trope where she shows up the men at every turn simply because she can. They don't play her for that. She's played more like a character. She's smart. She's capable in a dangerous situation. And when shit goes left, she just starts moving and you hang with her or you don't. That's kind of how they play it. But you know, that you'd never see a Ripley today in that kind of manner because she has to constantly one up everybody around her. You actually see Ripley go through shit. losing people she loves. You know, when I made sure to show my son the version of Aliens where you got to see what happened with Ripley's daughter. And, you know, if you're not, you know, if you don't want to hear that, you know, you might want to mute me for the next 10 seconds. But basically what you find when she comes back from Aliens in the second movie, they wake her up. It's been about 59 odd years that she's been dormant, just floating in space. And she missed her daughter by about 2 years. So she sees an image of her daughter as a grown old woman who died 2 years before she was found. Can you imagine how you'd feel as a parent? And you actually see Ripley emote. She's lost her daughter and then gets fired from her job. Like, she's going through it. She's lost people she loved. By the time you see the Aliens 3 with Charles Dutton, two of the main characters from Aliens that the audience grew to love, dead at the beginning of it. You know what I mean? These are the kinds of stories that we saw. Very much, KJ. Very much a hero's journey. And whether you accept Alien 4 as canon or not, at the end of the day, she doesn't have a happy ending. By the end of Alien 3 and Alien 4, they try to give her one, but the character as we understand her from the very first Alien movie does not have a happy ending. And that's the kind of storytelling that builds respect for characters. Ripley earned her stripes. She wasn't a superhero. She wasn't kicking men through walls just because she was smart. She was always smart. There was no question about that. But the way they went about it was not about proving that to the detriment of men. Yeah, I think it was a special edition, Hugo. I think you're right. Yeah, because in that series, which I thought was done well, there's a couple things they show. One of which is how the aliens finally show up in the second movie, because nobody's seen them for 50 odd years. It's almost 60 years. In the original movie, aliens, all of a sudden they just show up. But at least in the special edition, they explain why nobody's seen them in so long. In a way, they show you how the aliens kind of come back. So well done. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And as Count Sekou says, yeah, Charles Dutton has some good one-liners in there too. He was, man, I'm telling you, Charles Dutton is a freaking man, and everything I see him in, he'll play bit roles, and for me, he steals the movie. Two movies that come to mind: Aliens 3. He had a bit role. I mean, he was a significant character, but he wasn't a major character who's was taking over the story. But he stole the freaking movie. The other one is Menace to Society. If you go watch Menace to Society, he plays Sharif's father. Sharif was supposed to be played by Tupac. Pac didn't want to play him, so they got another brother who did an okay job, but had Pac done it, it would have been a whole nother level to it. Pac had talent. He had a lot of talent, and I would have loved to see him get to Denzel's age with that talent and see what he could do with it. But the brother who played Sharif he was an okay actor. He did a good job. I liked him. But Charles Dutton playing his father, you see him a couple times. They're laughing. It's lightweight, joking around. There's one scene, and Charles, I think he requires this. This must be in his damn contract. He has one sit down with the young men in that film. And I'm going to tell you, that had a lot to do with who I wanted to become after I saw that movie. Charles Dutton, watch that freaking movie. And if you don't watch it for nothing else, watch it for that one scene, which you could probably find on YouTube. But at the end of the day, that brother laid in such manner. It was right there with Lawrence Fishburne in Boys in the Hood, where he has that one moment where he breaks down what's going on in the hood. Although Charles plays it with a lot more intensity. And I love that about him. He's got an intensity about him that is unapologetically masculine. And yet his masculinity is not about any of these stereotypical kind of definitions of it. Right? He's a brother. He's a man doing his thing. And so that if nothing else, watch that scene with him. And I'm telling you, I was in the theater as a young man watching that, blown away. And I wanted to be like Charles Dutton in terms of that when I got older. Right? Those are the kind of things I look for in films. Wannabe Mystic says, could you please answer the quick question from my super chat? Okay, I'll get to it. I didn't see it yet. Let's see. Terminator 1 and 2 were the best. I agree, Doc. Mr. Dutton was a pillar in Aliens 3, no doubt. And again, people hated Aliens 3. People hated it. But I loved it because of Charles Dutton. Shout out to Donnie. He says that's why I got to give credit to Dave Filoni and how he handled Ahsoka Tano in the Clone Wars 3D series. He took her through the ringer to make sure she earned our respect as fans. Yeah, and they pissed it away as soon as she got her own series. All of that equity that they built up. Let me see. International Quiet Storm, support Black media. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's see. Let me work backward in here. Let me see. So Andre says, by the way, I'm glad you got to spend that time with your son. That's priceless. Hope you had quality time. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was, man. Yeah, it was. When you get to see your son become a man, man, there's no greater gift. You know you can leave this earth when you see your son able to stand on his own 2 feet as a man and make the decisions he has to make. When you know that your son has reached that point, there's something, at least for me, I can't speak for all fathers, but there's something that happens to you knowing. Because to me, the whole goal of being a father is to pass that along, especially before shit gets too thick. Excuse me, I got a quick cussing. Anyway, so J Will 28 says, I will never forgive them for what they did in Star Wars. Okay, I read this. Yeah, and was done wrong. Absolutely. And thank you again for the donations. I'm just kind of going back, trying to see who I missed. Yeah, I think that's this type of propaganda is to manipulate the next generation. Cultural shifts happen in stages. Shout out to Ricky. Appreciate that. Okay, shout out to Great I 9. Women are pushed exclusively in leadership role of direct command. They rarely are parallel in authority, i.e. a commander, but not his commander. Exactly. They have to be in charge of the men around them. And so, we're seeing the hero figure taking direction from women. And it's funny because in the Black community, all these accusations about hypermasculinity and patriarchy in the Black community. I'm talking, black men are take direction from women more than any other demographic. I mean, if you look at it, especially since the Great Migration out of the South, when you had black folks coming up into the North, the Midwest, the East, you shifted from a model where you might be working out in the fields with your father all day. You shift to a model in a city format where he works an 8-hour job, 8 to 10 hours, right? At least 5 to 6 days a week. And primarily the only people you're around in terms of authority figures are women, whether it's your mother or your aunties, extended family, or the teachers in your schools, which are overwhelmingly female, right? From the moment we transitioned into, life outside of sharecropping in the South, Black men have taken direction from women for generations. It's not difficult for us to take direction. That's why it's that much more interesting to see Black men, in media, in positions of authority. But for some reason, we get a double dose of it, as if that's not already happening. Let me see. Bed Mike, shout out the donation. He says, yeah, boys need tactile learning simply means Montessori work better, not that they should be stunted. Birth through 5 are the critical development years. Reeves will further hurt boys. Okay, yeah. Let me see. Shout out to Wannabe Mystic. He says, Dr. T, have you noticed that a lot of TV commercials that have interracial relationships often have weak-looking Black men with strong Superwoman-esque white/Latina women? Oh yeah. You're not seeing too many Charles Dutton type Black men represented in this stuff. You're not. Shout out to Great I9. He says these micro-tropes are inserted very purposely. Okay, I think I read this one, but thank you for this. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to see who I might have missed. I apologize if I missed you. It's not intentional. I think I don't see any of them that I missed. So again, my apologies if I have. But yeah, so that's really what I wanted to kind of get at. We have the at the end of the day, the 2 dominant tropes that I wanted us to kind of explore. Some of them we've been paying attention to for years, female superiority tropes. But I want us to be cognizant of these micro female superiority tropes. That's really the point of tonight. We looked at ESG. We kind of looked at why it's happening or how it's happening. But at the end of the day, I think the micro might even be more impactful than the regular female superiority tropes because they play on the subconscious, and they you know, we see them far more often because you don't have to wait for a large scale movie to come out to do it. You can see it in a commercial. You can see it in a what do you call it? Like a banner, advertisement, billboard. It's not something that has to be even recorded as a commercial, but we see it so often. And the impact is, I believe it's having on our boys is that much more detrimental. But you know what it does for women and girls? It normalizes, right, their authority. So even in micro situations, there were a series of commercials I saw in the last couple of years where there was one that was hilarious though. I got to give it that. It was a brother and he had a black girlfriend, and I think he came in and she just looked at him and she had this look on her face and he wouldn't tell him why she was upset. It was a hilarious commercial, but even something as subtle as that, right, reinforcing the idea that your primary concern should be about her feelings, what's going on with her, right? It was all gynofocal. It was all about her. So even when you have a commercial where a woman just walks up, takes something out your hand, eats it, and walks away, and you stand there stupefied, what are the underlying tropes that are playing out, right? Shout out to Andre. Says, shout out to you in the chat. I don't get to nerd lame out often. Yeah, I don't either. So I appreciate it. Somebody brought up Danny Glover in Predator 2. Yeah, Danny was strong. Danny was strong. I didn't think that was going to work. I loved Arnold and Predator in the first one. And when I first saw the trailer with Danny, I was like, so Mister from Color Purple is out here shooting aliens? Like I wasn't, but I watched it. And I had to tip my hat. Danny Glover handled it. The film didn't do as well. People still to this day don't talk about it anywhere near as much as the first. But I got to give it to him, man. He handled it. I mean, I've never seen Danny Glover play a dominant, unapologetically masculine character like that in that fashion, right? And I think he did a brilliant job. If you haven't seen Predator 2, go back and watch it. Shout out to Danny Glover. He played an excellent, kind of thing. But again, we don't get to see those kinds of men now. And I can, man, I bet you money one of those movies is not going to be made today. Because here's the thing, even when we talk about independent black film, again, they primarily cater to women. Go watch those those BET movies. Go watch them. Even the one now, BET are going to generally play the ones with women leads, but even when you watch BET proper, when they have characters, they overwhelmingly bend to the female characters, right? And those are the kind of micro tropes I want us to pay attention to and get used to calling out. Get used to calling them out. Yeah, a few people said Predator 2 was my favorite movie. Yeah, Danny Glover was strong in it, man. He was strong. I had to give it to him. And even the fight with the alien at the end was realistic. I didn't think it would be. I really didn't think it would be. Because, you always, the formula doesn't change. You always get the big fight at the end. So we knew it was going to happen. But I'm looking at Danny, the trailer, and I'm like, come on, man. But I'm telling you, it was intelligently done. It was strong. It was strong. And I think that's what a lot of men crave now, is to see men, being strong and unapologetically so, right? I think this is what many men want to see. And you're getting a trickling of projects like that. This is what Tom Cruise is good at. What you see Tom Cruise doing is almost like a, kind of a, almost kind of nouveau masculine kind of thing. He's putting out films where you're seeing strong, unapologetic men doing things. That I think was the critical thing about his Top Gun 2 film. And I said this when it came out after I watched it. I said he doesn't pull any punches. It's not like he made something straight out of 1984. You can kind of see the impact of all of this gynofocal, kind of filmmaking over the years, even in his film, but he answers it much the way Kurt Russell does in Monarch. It's not that these changes aren't happening. It's more like the characters they're developing acknowledge these changes, but they're still men. And unlike these other projects, they're unapologetically so. Same thing for that film Father Stew I talked about a couple years ago by Mark Wahlberg. You were starting to see this kind of micro movement toward men putting out projects, select men who are in a position to do it, putting out projects where they're unapologetically masculine. We don't get to see those often. Lavarius says, did you see the Predator movie with Sanaa Lathan? Come on, fam. You know, I'm a nerd, and it was Sanaa Lathan. So, yeah, you know, I saw it. There's no question about it. She did okay. She did okay. You know, I got a while. I haven't seen it in a while, but I didn't remember, you know, seeing her just kind of being the same kind of typical snarky character. You know, she had to go through a sort of hero's journey. She got her ass kicked. She had to learn some things. You know, she had to take some risks. You know, but I don't remember a lot of the details. Clarence says Morgan Freeman, Lean on Me. Oh yeah, man. I don't even know, man. Can you imagine Lean on Me done in 2023? You wouldn't want to see that. You really wouldn't want to see that. Equalizer, yeah, Equalizer was strong, KJ. Oh yeah, Equalizer was strong. I give it to Denzel. You know, I enjoyed all three of those. I enjoyed all three of those movies. Let me see. Let me see what else. International Quiet Storm says, meh, the Predator was the best actor. I ain't mad about it. Yeah, okay. So Comedic says, in my opinion, Sanaa Lathan worked. She wasn't a Mary Sue. She was just about her business. And that's the formula that we see laid out with Ripley and Alien, right? Just handles business. She's in a situation she has to deal with. Shout out to Gail at Night. What's good with you? Let's see. Coach Carter. Oh, yeah. Coach Carter was strong. Coach Carter was strong. I haven't watched that in a long time. Are we going into the obscure Ghost Dog? I love Ghost Dog, man. Forrest Whitaker. Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai. It's funny, and you wouldn't expect it to be. You know, you see two brothers that are friends, actually two black men that are friends and don't even speak the same language. But whenever they talk to each other, they kind of understand each other, even though they don't speak the same language. I love Ghost Dog, man. Watch Ghost Dog. Check him out. Samuel Jackson is Shaft. There we go. There we go. You know, and it's telling, or at least worthy of acknowledgement, that he brings back the original Richard Roundtree not long before Mr. Roundtree passes. So shout out to you know, that last Shaft film that gave him his flowers before he left. You know, I appreciated that. Who says Yaphet Kodo? An alien. That's right. Yeah, don't get me started on the Equalizer with Queen Latifah. She looked like she's fighting that chest more than she's fighting anybody else. Whenever I see her in combat, man, I'm like, you can't even extend your arms. Anyway, don't have me go there. Let me see. So, got a few people in here. Yeah, Ghost Dog is the shit. Ghost Dog is shit. Blade, no question. Yeah, man. If you got any time over the break, man, you might want to enjoy a little film series. Jim Kelly and Enter the Dragon. Okay, there we go. Okay. Man of Anger says Hollywood wouldn't let Denzel's Equalizer save black folk. Right. Sidney Poitier. Okay. 3 the Hard Way. All right. Going back. We taking it back to the 70s, huh? All right. They couldn't make Rush Hour 1 and 2 today. They'd cancel that. No doubt. You don't get Chris Tucker in the 90s today. I don't. But there would have to be, just like we're doing on YouTube, there would have to be projects made by people that understand why they're doing it. It couldn't be haphazard. It couldn't be, you know, oh, we just decided to make this film. No, you'd have to come into it saying, no, I'm doing characters that are unapologetically black and male, and you know, they don't have to kowtow to others around them to make others feel secure with their masculinity. They don't have to cater to women to be marked as good characters. They could actually be self-directed characters. This is why we talked about the Onyx media test. Can we actually develop projects where we can see men unapologetically being men. And I see these men all the time in real life. So I want to be able to see them in fiction. I want to be able to see them in, you know, other genres of filmmaking. I'm mainly a film person, so I'd like to see that. Said Man on Fire. Couldn't say black folk. Okay, yeah. How did Denzel's son do in The Creator? You know, I haven't seen Tenet or The Creator yet. I do need to see both of them. I do, and I know I'm dropping the ball on that. Idris Elba always plays a masculine black role. Okay, so Lone Wolf McQuaid. Y'all taking it back. Lone Wolf McQuaid. Okay, Chuck Norris and David Carradine. All right. I don't remember much about Lone Wolf, but I will tell you, as far as David, I will get lost in some episodes of Kung Fu on YouTube. I will go down a 3 hour Kung Fu rabbit hole if you let me. I grew up watching that. I would have loved to see it with Bruce Lee instead, but you know, the show was still the show. I enjoyed it as a kid, you know. So Tenet was dope. Okay. Was you know, how was the character? How was Denzel's son's performance in your assessment? International Quiet Storm. Let me know. Let's see. Tom Etheridge says, what happened to the Luke Cage series? Yeah, they did a couple seasons on Netflix, and then by the time they brought all of those seasons, well, really before they brought them over, but by the time they brought them over to Disney Plus, the only one that looked like they got a green light was Daredevil. And then apparently, after, you know, a number of shows were you know, filmed, Kevin Feige didn't like what he saw and he scrapped it, which I'm not mad about, because after the last time they did Daredevil and the She-Hulk series, I really didn't have any confidence that it was going to be consistent with what they had done. But that whole series that was on Netflix, from Daredevil to well, the Iron Fist one was garbage. But Luke Cage was dope. Even Jessica Jones was actually pretty good. Jessica Jones, Punisher, and Daredevil were actually pretty good. So they're all on Disney Plus, but I don't think there's any, you know, there's any prospects as far as them getting another season, which is too bad, because I actually liked Luke Cage. I did. Man of Anger says David Washington was saving white robots. Okay. All right. Creator was decent. All right, let's talk. A Man Named Hawk. That's right. I got the bootlegs. I don't care. I found them on DVD some years ago. A Man Named Hawk. That's right. That is right. From Hawk to Deep Space Nine, man. I've enjoyed so much of that brother's work. But A Man Named Hawk spin off from Spencer for Hire. Always liked the character when he's showing. I think he only got one season though, but he had a lot of up and coming black actors in his series for the one season he got, and he did a good job. He really did. If you ever get a chance to check out A Man Named Hawk, it was good for the time period, suited it very well. I like how it was done. So yeah. Okay, so Andre says watch Tenet for sure. All right, we'll do. I will do that. Django Unchained. Okay. I enjoyed Django. You know, I think Jamie Foxx did a good job, but Jamie, he does well often. I mean, by the time we saw him play Ray, he was in a whole nother level. And I'd like to see him play characters of that sort a little more in terms of what it takes to play those characters. But I don't know what's been going on with him lately. And I know lately, and I'm going to do a show on this soon about the accusations that have come to a number of people like Diddy and, of course, Jamie Foxx. We'll see how it impacts their careers. Kevin Spacey may be able to come back after a few years, but when it comes to black folk, I don't know if they get a part two. I don't know. We'll see if that happens. I mean, if Bill Cosby doesn't, if his career doesn't survive and get to a part two, I don't know what happens to lesser known actors, but we'll see. We'll see how all of this goes, you know, especially if they're able to, you know, prove that accusation's false. We'll see. Jonathan Majors is still going through it, but it is what it is. Ice Cube and Triple X. Yeah, okay. That was funny. It was funny, but I don't know if it was supposed to be, but I laughed anyway. Um, and I like Q, but in Triple X it was just kind of yeah, I was mad they canceled Luke Cage as well. Cyborg 1989. Damn, y'all going back. Luke Cage was good until they killed off Cottonmouth. You know, it was good for season 2 for a different reason, but I agreed with you. I didn't want to see Cottonmouth killed off. I enjoyed his character. I still think it was a bit of a mistake to kill him off, but I like season 2 for a different set of reasons. Yeah, I did a short show on this a couple years ago. They did try to remake Kung Fu with a female lead, and it didn't last long. Even the trailer was garbage. It was garbage. But yeah, let me see. International says he played a lot of action in Tenet, but it was more of a thinking movie, similar to Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, I like those kind of movies. All right. Oh. Django was real. First time you really see a black man killing for black love. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was even in that, the film had moments of humor that I didn't see coming. I'm not a big Tarantino fan. I really never liked him, but I've enjoyed a couple of his films, and Django was one of them. Dar, yeah, Jessica Jones was actually good. I think she got 3 seasons, and they were actually pretty good. Especially if you stand back and look at the beginning and end of the 3 seasons and see the story arc, it was pretty good. Shout out to Craig, says Godfather of Harlem with Forrest Whitaker. Yeah, you know, I only caught the first season. I forgot because I don't know what happened to the series. It kind of went in and came back. I don't know what happened to it, but I need to go back and see it because I know they've done, you know, some other. I don't know if it's 1 or 2 seasons since the first one, but I only saw the first one. But I enjoyed it. Forrest Whitaker did a brilliant. Forrest is, man, as far as acting is concerned, Forrest is brilliant. There's not a lot I've seen him in that I didn't enjoy. I mean, I'm going back to oh man, what's the first film I saw him in? Um, hold on. I was a damn it. What was that? He was in. I know how to find it here. Fast Times at Richmond Hall. Is that what it is? Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, or Richmond High. Fast Times at Richmond High. That's the first time I saw Forrest Whitaker. And I've enjoyed him in pretty much everything I've seen him in since. Okay. Beverly Hills Cop 4 is coming to Netflix. Yeah, after Beverly Hills Cop 3, I'm not expecting much. Shout out to Black Males for that Avatar though. Darren Seals, that's what's up. KJ says Blood and Bone. I enjoyed Blood and Bone. Michael J. White, absolutely. Billy Blanks, the king of the kickboxers. I never saw any of his films. I can't say, but you know, if you tell me it's dope, I take your word. Luke Cage married to Becky, then his ratings went down. Yeah, they punish brothers for that. All right. They celebrate when women do it. When black women, you know, when they get with white men, it's a celebration. When black men do it, they try to end your career. A lot of brothers went through that. Some of them had to keep secrets. Some of them had to step away from white women till their career could improve, whatever. But yeah, when it comes to brothers, you know, you don't have range to do that. Yeah. Brother Chris and DJ B-Side says Avery Brooks is king. I agree. Avery Brooks is the man. Mike B from No Remorse was him. Okay. I don't remember that. Best of the best. Lyndon said Action Jackson. Oh, snap. We going back. Action Jackson. All right. I ain't gonna shit on him. You know, I love Action Jackson. You know. Let me see. Aaron says Deep Space Nine shook me. I swore that Generations was the best until I saw Deep Space Nine and was floored. You know what, man? I've talked about that before. I didn't watch it at the time. And it was a dumb reason too, because I was starting college when it came out, and I found out his name is Cisco. I was like, how you gonna name the first black captain after a damn, drink? I was a little hot, I was like, you can name him after a 40. I didn't end up watching Deep Space Nine until after 2005. Um, and it would come on right when I was, putting my son to sleep. So I'd be in the living room. My son is in my arms. I'm rocking him to sleep and watching. And we would do that every day. We would watch Deep Space Nine. And I realized how much of a mistake I made not watching it, because Cisco was the shit. Cisco was the shit. And I should have had faith. I really should have had faith in Avery Brooks. I seriously dropped the ball on that. And I loved it. The whole series, it's now my favorite. But I wish I'd watched it at the time, because he deserved the support. So yep. Broken Blade says Captain Cisco was the dude. Yeah, there's a couple of those shows I still play in my classes. There's two of them in particular. There's one with his son when he dies, but he keeps coming back to see his son as a ghost, or what seems to be a ghost. I play that one. And there's another where he builds a ship, an ancient ship, and flies it in space, which had some elements to it that reminded me of, the journey across the Atlantic, from Africa. But, if you haven't seen those two episodes, if nothing else, watch the series. Wesley Snipes in Passenger 57. Yeah, unapologetically masculine. I loved it. He was cold. Vin Diesel gets to be masculine and fast in the Fast movies. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. End of Days, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I got to go back and watch. I remember it, with the girl and the what'd you call it? The Antichrist, I think it was, but I don't remember too much about it. Okay. Yeah. Talking about the daughter of Jack Ritter. Oh, wait, Jessica Jones? Maybe, I don't know, Jerome, if I'm getting this wrong. Are you saying Jessica Jones is one of the daughters of John Ritter from Three's Company? Let me know if I'm misunderstanding you. Yeah, Book of Eli. Yeah, Book of Eli was good. Book of Eli was good. Jim Brown, Dirty Dozen, no question. I liked Black Adam. KJ, I liked Black Adam. I thought that film should have done way better than it did. It didn't go with all the tropes that we're seeing. And I didn't see any reason why that movie shouldn't have done better. I thought The Rock did an excellent job. I liked it. I've always been cool with Black Adam, but I actually liked the character that Rock played. I liked his rendition of it. I did. Shout out to Blood Boiling. Says Creed 1, 2, and 3. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I give it to Michael B. Jordan. I love the Creed series. The first one got me hooked, and I've enjoyed the other two since then. I think Angry Man, when he did a film review of the first one, he caught exactly what moved me. When you get to the end of Creed 1, and he gets knocked down, and you see what's going on in his head as he's knocked out. There were two scenes in that movie where my eyes welled up. There was the very beginning when you see all those black boys in a detention center. And then, toward the end where you see him laying out and the thought process going through his head after he's been knocked out. So, yeah, Michael B. Jordan has earned nothing but my respect in the Creed series. They're doing a fourth Creed. I'm just hoping it's not about his daughter fighting, but, we'll see what happens. But, I mean, for 3 movies, he ain't let me down. So I'm going to give him my respect. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah. Michael J. White. Yep. Somebody just named it Film Cobra 1986. God damn. All right. Well, I'm not gonna leave y'all up here. I apologize. I had to nerd out for a little while. I appreciate y'all indulging me on that. But I'm gonna go get into something tonight. Let's see what's up. So shout out to Spain, man. It's good to see you, man. Didn't know you were in here. Hope you're well. Ghetto User says late but here. Glad to have you. All right. Kwame says Forrest Whitaker was in Bloodsport. Man, I gotta rewatch that. Let me see. Shout out to JL West. Says, I was hoping for a Heroes for Hire series would come later down the line with Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Yeah. It would have had to go there if they were, kind of following the comics, and they kind of hinted at it in terms of, his relationship with Iron Fist. They were developing one, especially in the Defenders film that they did, which is also on Disney Plus now. I thought they did a fairly good job with that, but they didn't let it continue on. LeVar says, wasn't Al Bundy an alpha male when married with children? I don't know. He was kind of henpecked. He was doing the best he could. But oh, Truck Turner. Damn, y'all going back to the 70s. Truck Turner. Oof. Man. Shout out to Sower of Seed. He says, peace. He said, the bit of the stream I was able to catch reminds me of an extreme practice of making sure a black messiah, or any messiah for that matter, never rises again, as according to the CIA. Absolutely. But I look at that as the fuel, or the seed planted, in young minds to, where they can actually be able to see themselves as potentially doing something significant. What happens when you have generations of boys that never get to see themselves do anything significant, right? And I really think society has underestimated the impact of ignoring boys. I really do. And I think it's biting them in the ass already. Now, true, I got to give you points on this. Lawrence Fishburne and Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned. I show that in my black male class. Powerful film. Powerful film. Excellently done. Excellently done. Thanks for shouting that out. Lawrence Fishburne did his thing in Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned. I always thought that film should have done more than it did. But shout out to you for pointing that out. So anyway, I'm going to close it out here. I hope you guys are well. I appreciate you coming through tonight. Give me your comments about what types of micro female superiority tropes you've witnessed, where you're seeing them, where we didn't talk about them, or what other issues you have with it that we need to be thinking about. Because again, the way we're being socialized, right? The way we're being socialized is problematic. And I think people greatly underestimate what impact that'll have. Sean Henderson on LinkedIn is going in, naming movies. Go ahead. But points to drunk photography mentioning Pootie Tang. Oh man, the fact that you just put Pootie, you wrote the words Pootie Tang. I just got to give you points if you're willing to do that. Shout out to Pootie Tang, man. Oh man, Andre says you're indulging me in the chat. This is great. I appreciate it. Like I said, I don't get to nerd out much myself. Dark Dragon, yeah. I haven't seen Serenity. I gotta check that out. Y'all ain't shit. Willie Dynamite, you got to have vision. I've thoroughly enjoyed First Time Felon with Omar Epps. I haven't seen that movie in years, but I still remember it. Yeah, if you get a chance to watch that, that's definitely the flick to catch. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all have a good night. Enjoy yourselves. I appreciate you coming through. Peace.